This morning I want to look in John chapter 13. I want to read the passage for you first. And then after we look at the passage, I want to share a little bit of a story with you. And then I want to talk about how we become community. What the Bible means when he's talking about being brothers and sisters. What the Bible means when it talks about us being the church. So this morning we're going to be looking in John chapter 13. And I'm going to be looking at verses 1 through 5. John chapter 13, verses 1 through 5. Let me read the word of God to you this morning. John 13, beginning with verse 1. Let me read it. Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. I don't know if we think about this analytically or try to scientifically figure out, but I'm sure all of you have experienced certain groups of people with whom you instantly became close to and had an affinity towards. And somehow a community, if you want to use that word. I mean, it's overused, but somehow there was something there that made you drawn to that group. And you felt a part of it. You felt connected. And when I look at the ministry of Jesus, beyond all the miracles, beyond all the incredibly wise words, and beyond all the sermons, all the things that Jesus did to confound the arguments of those who are legalistic or who are stuck in sin and just doing evil, even though it was pointed out to them. Beyond all of those things that maybe we kind of fixate on, what I find in Jesus Christ, what his primary mission, of course, was to pay for all of our sins, was to be connected and have this deep relationship and build a community that would lay the foundation for the church. The church that he would not be a part of because he would be going back to the Father. And so in John 13, we have this time when Jesus' 3 years with his disciples is kind of coming to an end, and he's poured out all of his wisdom, all of his love. He's poured out relationship into them, his time, his effort. He's just cared for them even more so than anyone else, even more so than his own family. He's taken this band of just average, on the fringe kind of people. They weren't anybody spectacular. They weren't extraordinary. They weren't wealthy. They weren't anybody of name or prominence. And he gathered them together and he loved on them. And as his time was growing near, Jesus did two things that we remember as a church. One of the things we don't regularly do, and one of the things that we regularly do. Well, the thing that we regularly do is what we call communion or the Lord's Supper. And really, it wasn't quite as ritualized as we make it in the church today, but literally, Jesus was having food with them, and he's just hanging out. And some of his greatest moments of teaching happened over the dinner table, happened over lunch, happened while they were eating. And towards the end of his life, when he did the Lord's Supper, when he did the communion, it was kind of a somber night, and they, maybe they were just doing their own conversations. There was like 13 of them. They're all hanging out and talking, whatever conversations that you get. I mean, this past weekend on Friday to Saturday, we kind of wrapped up our men's mentoring and discipleship that we were doing for about a year. And we spent one night, Friday night, and then half of Saturday up until about noon together. And, I kind of eavesdrop and listen to the conversations and see what's going on. I mean, it's not like I'm doing it like, in a bad way, but I'm just sitting there and all these different conversations going on. We're in this like small hotel room. We have 4 rooms, but we all gathered in one. And people are talking about just everything. Just kind of easy conversation. Nothing super theological, spiritual, nothing deep necessarily, but just interacting. And I can imagine the disciples were doing the same thing. I don't know exactly what they were talking about, but I'm sure they're talking about the news of the day. They're talking about something that they heard of, or some new developments in the town or in the city or whatnot. And when Jesus, after that supper, he said, this bread that we ate, I want to tell you something about this bread. This bread is actually like my body, like who I am, my very life, that's going to be broken for you and given for you. And he just gave each one of them a piece. When you eat it, what I'm saying to you is, you're a part of me. We're connected. We're a brand of brothers. We're just deeply rooted, and we're connected to one another through. I mean, he didn't say it in those words, but that's what at least a part of what communion is about. And then afterwards he said, here's the wine is symbolic of my blood. And when you take that, and they were drinking wine with their meal. Because in that day, the water wasn't necessarily good. And so when you fermented the water and you added some juice and you made that wine out of it, it was watered down. It wasn't like the wine that we do most of the time. It was better for you because you wouldn't get sick from it, from the diseases or the parasites in the water. And he said, just drink this. It's almost like passing out water in a sense. It's saying, this water is like my blood. It's going to be shed for your sins. Drink it and take it. And maybe in a modern sense, what he's saying, at least in the community sense, what he's saying is, I'm going to suffer for you. I'm going to go through things. I'm going to shed my blood for you. I'm going to be there for you. And I mean, maybe from a purely macho guy perspective, is your friend someone that's going to jump in? I mean, we shouldn't get in fights, but if someone attacks you, you get in a fight, is it someone that's going to, jump in that fight with you, or are they going to be like, oh my gosh, I got to call the police? How are your friends? I am not saying Christians should go hang out together, and if you're going to fight, all of you should just get in a fight together. That's not what I'm talking about. But do we have friends that are going to be willing to get in there with you? Literally, I had this church member a number of years ago who was this young man in his early 20s, and he had actually been in a gang when he was younger. And he had a lot of friends who were still in that lifestyle. And when he got saved, he started sharing the gospel with all these friends, and they just loved to hear from him. And he said, one of the things, he told me, he said, Pastor, one of the things I loved about that group of people is we're willing to lay down our lives for one another. Now, we didn't do good things. We did bad things. We broke into people's homes. We sold drugs. We did all these things that I'm not proud of. Some of us went to jail, but we had each other's backs. And now when I see this, when I see how Jesus loved his disciples, he said, when I first read the gospel, I realized Jesus had a gang. And I said, okay, I guess that's the one way to put it, But then he said the way that he started reading it and seeing it was radically different, because it wasn't about shedding other people's blood, but it's about laying down. It was all the best things, it was not all the bad things. So Jesus is saying we're connected, and the way we're connected in community, and this is not just for men, but this is for all of us, is that we're willing to sacrifice and even if need be suffer for one another in order for us to serve and love each other. And this is why when we're in marriages and we're going through a rough patch, or with our parents and we're fighting with them, or with our friends and we just have this major disagreement about something, or something happened, or they betrayed you, or they hurt you, you don't give up. You say, okay, I got wounded, I got hurt, I'm shedding some blood. Didn't Christ do that for me? And you see, that's the example that he's laying out. He's saying, honestly, none of us, just by our qualifications, are worthy of Christ's love. But he's saying, I'm still willing to sacrifice, be cut, die, because I love you and I'm committed to you. And so that was one of the sacraments, and this is the one sacrament that all the Christian churches at least talk about. How frequently they observe it, it's all different, but that's what it's about. But it's really partly about what Christ did, of course, but when he says, remember me whenever you take of this and take of these sacraments, what he's saying is, remember me how? Just want to think, oh yes, Lord, I remember you. I don't remember him. I never met him, not physically. What is he saying? Remember what I did and do that one to another. That's what he's talking about. Then we come to this passage here, and this is another one, and I've had it done in a ritualistic sense, but no church that I know of, they have it where, okay, today is our monthly foot washing and our worship service, and so each one of you, I hope you wash your feet, we're going to have you come up, and then the pastor will wash your feet. It'll take a long time, and some of you would be kind of embarrassed to show your feet, and you wouldn't want to do it even come to church on that Sunday. I know. That's the way we do it. Everybody's getting pedicures on Saturday or something like this. But see, it was a very pragmatic, practical thing that happened in the homes at that day because everywhere wore sandals and their feet got dirty and all the junk from the road got on their feet. And it was horse and cart, donkey and cart, and so you can imagine what else was on the streets. And so what would happen is you'd go to someone's home, and if they were wealthy enough, they would have a servant who at the door would take you, sit you down, get fresh water, wash your feet clean as an act of hospitality, and then pat it dry, and then you go into the house. So you don't track all that, stuff into the house. Well, we don't know exactly what happened, but obviously none of the disciples did this. They didn't have any servants. Maybe all of them were saying, well, they were waiting for somebody else. Well, I'm not going to do you. But no, nobody's going to do it. And so they're already partway into their meal, and then Jesus gives the foot washing. But what's fascinating to me is when you begin to look at this is not just some kind of ritual that Jesus is like, oh my gosh, you're not serving each other. Yes, there's a part of that, but he's showing them about how to love as a Christian, how to have community, how to continue relationship. If you really dig into this little bit of an example, if we not literally, but symbolically in our mind, wash our husband's feet, wash our wives' feet, wash our children's feet, wash our parents' feet, wash others' feet. If we have that mentality that Jesus had, you will go a long way in creating amazing. When you read this passage in verse 1, it says, now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, it says, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. I know we don't really talk like this, and so it doesn't readily come into our minds, but literally what it's saying is that, okay, here's the season. It was the season of the Feast of Passover. It was close to what we would consider Easter now. And Jesus knew that he was soon going to be crucified on the cross. And then it says, having loved his own who were in the world, his disciples and all those that were following him, it says, he loved them to the end. What does it mean that Jesus loved us to the end? May I mention this because I think this is really critical. One of the characteristics of Christian love that we must understand is that it is absolutely unconditional, and it is a love of commitment and perseverance. What I mean by that is you don't give up. You never let go. You never stop. There's no, if this person does this to me, it's over. If this happens, if, no. Do you understand this? Because out of the 12 disciples, there was a guy, this passage mentioned it, named who? Judas Iscariot. And even if you're not a Christian, you know what it means to be a Judas. It means to be someone who betrays you, stabs you in the back, right? And that was one of the 12. So did Jesus wash Peter's feet and Matthew's feet and John's feet and come to Judas and goes like, oh, yeah, let me just pass you by. No. He washed Judas's feet too. Knowing full well in his spirit that this is the guy that was going to sell him for a little bit of money. He knew that he was going to get crucified. Someone was going to betray him. But knowing that he poured out into him for 3 years and loved him as best he could, the same as all the other disciples, and that he was going to turn on him and stab him. You know how painful that is? to know, basically that are lying straight to your face. And Jesus said, I'm going to love them to the end. In order for us to love like Christ, in order for us to be people who build communities, who build relationship, who are fulfilled in our relationship, the way that you get fulfilled in your relationship is not finding the perfect man for a husband, the perfect woman for a wife, somehow brainwashing and programming your children to be perfect. It's not by finding better friends, a better church, a better workplace, a better community to hang out with. It's not all those things, because these disciples were nothing like that. They were not the best of the best, even relationally. They fought all the time. Who's the greatest? They argued with each other. They criticized each other. Jesus had to break it up at times. But Jesus chose to love them. And once he chose to love them, he said, I am committed to you to the very end. And it's only when you leave, it's only when I die and you die that commitment ends. This is why I went to a couple of weddings, and we had a reception at church yesterday and the last couple of weeks. This is why I love the traditional marital vow. I mean, I know I say this again and again, but I want to hammer this into your brain. You know, when I've done officiated weddings and they say they want to make their own wedding vows, I say, okay, but I am not going to allow it unless I can look at it. They're saying, why? Isn't it just us? And I said, no, because you're asking me to be a part of your wedding. And when you're asking that, you're asking me to be a representative of God in your wedding to bless your marriage. And because of that, if you are not vowing the love, that kind of love that God wants us to have, then what am I doing? You can go to the justice of the peace. I'll sign your paper, but why should I do the ceremony? What do you need me for? I'm just there as another ornament. Okay? That's not what I'm about. That's not what I want to do. And so I explain that. So I read their marital vows. And some of them, just to be perfectly honest, they suck. They don't know what they're talking about. I can't even say it any other ways. And I said, you need to rewrite this. And I said, you need to think a little bit more carefully. They write things that are just totally wrong because it flips it all around. Traditional marriage vow says, I will love you no matter what. I will be there for you until we die. But when I read some of these people's marital vows, it says, I'm marrying you because how you make me feel. The first time I saw it, I'm like, wow, it's very poetic, it's very flowery, but it's like those love songs that we fell in love with when we were 12 and 13, when our hormones were just starting to change just into puberty. I'm like, is that what your love is based on? So what's going to happen when you're 80 years old? Grandma and grandpa, ooh, you're really getting wrinkly there. I don't love you as much as I used to. Is that what's going to happen? Think about it. It's not the way it is. And so when you look at this, Jesus loves them to the end. And of course, it's intimating that he's going to love them till he dies on the cross. But what it's saying is that he's showing his disciples, look, here's how much I love you. I am willing to do that which is the role of a servant, and that which is incredibly awkward. Incredibly awkward. In my family, we had a traditional Korean family, traditional family upbringing. And so when my grandmother used to live with me, my dad's mom, when we lived in our house, she refused to let me ever be in the kitchen when my mom, because I like to cook. I don't know if you guys know, but I like to cook. And so I wasn't allowed to cook in the kitchen at all. Like if she ever saw me in the kitchen, what do you got? And then of course she, sometimes she would cook for me if there's nobody else around. But then although I should yell out loud for my mom to come and get me a glass of milk, put it in my cereal bowl. I can do that. That's how it was. That was that. And then when she moved to live with my uncle, of course my mom was happy, but then I got to do more things. But when my grandmother was with us, my dad and I would just go immediately to the dining table and be seated there. And then my sister and my mom and my grandmother would be in the kitchen, and they'd get all, and then each one would come out, each plate. And literally my mom and my grandmother wouldn't start eating until my dad and I were mostly done. And we got everything that we needed, so we were kind of done. And we just kind of, others we didn't want second helpings, anything else, we needed water, anything else. That's how it was. When I got older, and when I was visiting home one time when I was in my college years, and so my dad never did those things, you know. I mean, it's not like he couldn't, but he didn't. There was one time when my dad and I were the only ones at home, and I was sick. And I was hungry, but who was going to get us food? And so my dad came by, and he doesn't do this normally, he's kind of just very, he's like, oh, are you hungry? And I'm like, yeah. So, okay, I'll get you some food. So I thought he was going to go out and buy some food. He actually made me food and brought it to my room. And he tried to spoon feed me. I was like, what? This is so awkward. No, I'm not that, you know what I'm talking about, right? It was just awkward. For the disciples, it was awkward. That's why Peter said, no, Lord, you're not washing my feet. You guys understand? Can I tell you something about loving people? It can be really awkward. Love is not always just, oh, it's just natural, easy. It can be extraordinarily awkward to love people. And they're like, oh, you guys understand what I'm talking about? Yes, we should do our best not to make it awkward. Okay, let me say one thing for just the married couples. Ladies, I don't know, for whatever reason, if the guy's put on the spot or whatever, and he, you know, some people are egging him on, or at some public function, and I know this happened at the reception yesterday or other places where they say, oh, kiss the bride, and the bride's going like this. No, just okay, you know, just receive it. Allow that public display of affection. Why? Because it makes it more awkward. You're like, oh, you know, we're already married for 10 years, or 15 years, or 20 years, or whatever. No. And vice versa. The reason why I'm saying that is sometimes it is awkward, but we need to get beyond the awkwardness. And sometimes people are like kind of say, oh, you know what, it's okay. I'm not talking about husbands and wives. I'm talking about just meeting new people and getting to know them. And they may kind of shy or push away and say, oh, you know, and have a wall up. In order to get through that wall, you have to get through some awkwardness. And it requires sometimes effort on your part. It requires a commitment to say, okay, I'm going to break through to have a relationship with this person. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? And one thing that I've learned that I didn't really understand when I was younger, that I understand now is that with any person, if you eventually get through that wall of awkwardness, you can have a relationship. Some of them just don't know how to do it well. Some of them are so introverted, some of them are whatever. I understand that. But it's possible. There is no one with whom it's not possible. I'm not saying it's always going to be nice and easy, but you should not give up, especially when you know in your heart that God is saying, I want you to build a bridge. I want you to have a relationship with this person. Maybe it's awkwardness with your dad or your mom. Maybe it's awkwardness with a brother or sister. Maybe it's an awkwardness with someone that you're already in a relationship that God granted to you. There needs to be a commitment. See, sometimes we just write people off. We say, if this happens, this marriage is over. If this happens, that person's never going to, I'm going to unfriend them, from Facebook. But I'm not going to interact with them anymore. We have to be very, very careful. As Christians, we don't give up to the very end because there's always the chance of redemption. As it continues on, it says, during supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him. So Jesus already knows that Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, is going to betray him. It's already in his heart. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hand and that he had come from God, was going back to God who rose from supper. So what does that tell us? Why this juxtaposition? What if you know someone's going to betray you? What if you know someone's talking bad about you? What if you know that this person, you overhear them talking about you, talking, garbage about you? What's our natural reaction? Well, if you're fairly civilized, you say, okay, I'm just not going to deal with that person. I'm just going to. And it's hard to interact with them face to face when they come to you and say, hey, how are you doing? Right? Two-faced, right? It's really hard. Well, Jesus is facing that exact same situation, but it says here, the juxtaposition in verse 3 is Jesus, knowing about Judas Iscariot, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, and rose from supper. What you see there is this intentionality of Jesus, of even knowing Judas Iscariot's heart and still serving him. How? Because he does not look at Judas, he looks at God. He's remembering God. Sometimes your kid, your spouse, is going to be very unlovable because of what they say or what they do, being inconsiderate or thoughtless. At that moment, don't look at them. Remember God. Even Jesus did that. He says, when I look at Judas Iscariot, okay, please, I'm not trying to, I bet Jesus was like, his heart was probably broken. He was like, how can you do this to me? Because later on, when he gives the bread, he says, one of you are going to betray me. Jesus doesn't even say, stay quiet about it. He says, one of you in this room, it's so heavy on his heart that he can't help but say it. And then they all say, Lord, me, no, not I. And Judas Iscariot also says, me, Lord? He says, the one I give this bread to, he even identifies who it is. Maybe he's trying to say it in a gentle way to you. But how does he still love that person to the very end? Because he looks at God. How do you love your spouse when they're acting like a total jerk or totally unlovable? Because you look at God. How do you love your kid when you're like saying, did that person come from me? Must be mostly my husband or mostly my wife. Think about God. Think about him. We look at God. That's the only way I know to love people who are difficult, who are impossible otherwise to love. Continue on. Not only does he get up, it says he laid out aside his outer garments, and then taking a towel tied it around his waist. I want to pause there for a second, but in order to love someone the way Christ loves someone, you have to be vulnerable. So this is literal nakedness, but we're talking about symbolic nakedness as well. To me, it's very fascinating because, and I don't want to go too far into that area, and it's not because I'm embarrassed about anything, but the way humans procreate, the way we have children, in case you don't understand this, is very intimate. There's some animal species, I'm not saying we're animals, but the mama fish comes along and lays some eggs. And the daddy fish comes along and squirts the semen on it and the sperm goes on there and then it gets inseminated. No interaction between the fish is necessary. God could have made it like that. I guess, right? You build a nest, and then the woman ovulates, and then moves on, goes on her chores. The guy comes back, oh, she ovulated, all right. And then that's it. No interaction. It could have been. Do you guys get what I'm saying? I'm not. Okay, maybe my imagination is too much. I don't know. But anyway. But why is it that in order to have a family, we actually have to, remove our clothes? Actually, literally. Even when we don't feel like we're in the best physical shape or whatever else. But why? Because part of it, what God wants to say, it's not just about the sex. There's a vulnerability. That's a part of it, but it's God created. But there's this commitment to love and relationship, and requires for us to be physically and then symbolically, spiritually, emotionally bare before one another. That's why Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, when they're naked with each other, right? And that's why a husband and wife, when they have a good, intimate relationship, and when they're just really best friends and all these things, there's no shame in it. I can go really off on this, but I won't go too far. But it just happens. My wife and I, after even a few months when we were married, we're all using the bathroom at the same time. And you know what I mean by using the bathroom at the same time. One's on the potty and one's brushing their teeth. That kind of stuff happened all the time. Maybe not all of you, okay? Maybe that's too much information. But, when we had one bathroom, That's what happened when we were first married. And we weren't shy about it. Why? Because we just know everything about one another. If you know what I'm saying. That's what happens. I'm not saying in order to have good relationships with your boys and your girls, you got to go to a sauna and be naked. I mean, you could, I guess, but what I'm saying is that you need to reveal your home. You need to allow them into you, into your heart, into your mind, into your life. Jesus does this symbolically. Can you imagine if, I don't know, I mean, going back to that awkward thing with my dad, but I mean, my dad serving me was just really, 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 really awkward. But it ought not to be. My dad and I never ever talked about sex. I mean, it's a God-given, wonderful thing. My mom's only advice to me going off to college was, watch out for girls. And I meant, what do you mean, watch out for girls? He said, they're going to use sex to graduate. I'm like, what? My mom never ever said anything. I'm like, and basically, I mean, her English wasn't that good, but basically what she's saying is if you get in a sexual relationship, it's going to be hard to, and I was like, oh, okay, Mom, this is another awkward, so like the two most awkward conversations probably times with my mom and whatnot. With my older daughter and I, we just talk about everything. I'm the only one that she has right now, so, she goes, oh, Dad, I need more tampons because there's, and I'm like, okay. And so I don't like going to the store and getting them for her, so Amazon. I love Amazon. It's bam! It's there. And then I buy, like boxes, it's there. Whenever you need it. Don't tell Catherine I said this. But you know what? She asked me and talks with me about any and everything. And the funny thing is Ellie's in the car sometimes when we're having some of our deepest conversations about just any and everything. And then Ellie's in the back like, what's this? And I'm all like, okay, how do I explain this? And so we just talk about it because that's what I like. I want. And I realize, and this is not to try to brag, but the reason why my daughter's going to ask me anything is because I share with her my failures. I apologize when I mess up. Not always, not right away. I have my pride, sometimes it gets in the way, but I do those things, and so she sees me being vulnerable, and she sees me falling down. She doesn't see me as a pastor, thank goodness. She just sees me as this guy who's trying and messes up. And then sometimes she pulls me and says, Dad, with Ellie, you shouldn't do this because of it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm the dad, because I'm getting coached by my 15-year-old daughter. But sometimes she says something very profound, but you're right. I don't do that. And because of that, she feels like I'm missing. It's not an easy thing for me to do. Trust me, it's not. The first time she did that, I'm like, okay. And then I thought about it, and you know what? The next thing that came out of my mouth was like, I was criticizing what she did. Because you have to be the dad, get that role. But I realized, no, I can't do that. Just let her say. She's doing it for my sake. Why would I want to break that conversation? Jesus is wonderful. And then it says, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. The final thing I want to point out to you about loving people is that you have to expect, you must be willing to give hands dirty. There's just no other. Relationships are messy. There is no such thing as a relationship that is not messy. If you think you have a relationship where you never fight, you're always in agreement and accord, I almost guarantee that relationship is not deep. It is not deep. You're just bearing with one another. You're just roommates if you're husband and wife. You're just hanging out together and you're just living in the same house together as a family. You're not. I'm not saying you have to fight all the time. What I'm saying is, if you're really going to deal with each other's problems, if you're really going to have your say, it gets messy. You're going to have to deal with stuff. Dirt, mess, all these things you're going to have to deal with those things. There's no such thing as a perfect relationship. They're all messy. There's no such thing as a perfect group of friends. And if there were, when you went in there, you'd screw it all up. Think about it. If they were perfect, why would they need you? Why would they want you? You have to be willing to get your hands dirty. And here Jesus is just, incredibly awkward moment for some of the disciples. But then as they're thinking about that, they realize how they are going to do something like this. You want to have an amazing marriage. You want to have a great relationship with your kids. You want to have good. I'm not saying I'm there. I don't know how to do this. This is why I'm reminding myself again this morning, more than any of you, this is what I need to. I want to have a relationship with you. Yesterday, when we finished up our men's discipleship and we were having this communion time and doing all these things, the thing that I realized, just looking around at those men that were gathered in their room, there was about, I think, 14 of us, one more than there were with Jesus' disciples here. So I was looking around, and I said this to them, I said, there's no one extraordinary. There's no one amazing. There's no one so spectacular here among this group that, man, people are just banging on your door to say, can I be your friend? There isn't. And in your circle of acquaintances, in the church, in your family, at your work, wherever, if you in your mind are saying, man, I need somebody better, I need a better group, instead of saying, okay, I have people here that I have maybe some issues with and whatnot, but if we all are on the same boat, we say, like, it's messy. I'm going to be committed with you guys. I'm going to be transparent and vulnerable. And this group will be transformed, just like Jesus' disciples were, to an extraordinarily supernatural level of community and relationship. But you have to make that decision, and you have to pay the price, and you have to be proactive about it with just and, there's all these little things that I say we're having. We're having, fellowship. We're going to cook some things together today. And next week we're gathering and we're having this feast. And I really believe food and fellowship have to go together. If you ever invite me to your house, it doesn't mean you have to have a big old feast, and we're just sitting there, it's awkward. There's nothing in between on the table. You gotta have some coffee or some tea or something, right? So that at least when we have nothing to say, we shove something in our mouth, right? And that's what happened. And then when you get to know each other, it's okay. But all these events, the retreat, the Thanksgiving feast blowout, all these things, the reason we're doing it, even the shoebox thing, from my perspective, when we gather and we just kind of do something, do a task, just hang out together intentionally, what ends up happening is that we're giving ourselves opportunity and permission. See, right now we're all so civil, we're all nice. We're in our Sunday clothes. And we're like just very polite and very nice to each other. We're smiling. Oh, okay, hi. It's great. I want to know some of your messiness. I want to know the things you're struggling with. I want you to know the things I struggle with. I want you to let me in. I want me to be able to just lay down some of my things and my burdens. And I want you to let me in so that you can come and just do that with me as well. I'm not saying it's going to happen instantly. I'm not trying to push you. But what I'm saying is intentionally do so. When I invite some of you guys, hey, let's go play sports. I don't care if you're good or bad. Just come. Okay? And when we say, let's cook together, just go do it and we start talking. My best conversations always happen in the car, over cooking, just hanging out, doing something that's nothing Bible study, sermon. Let's do this. Let's be good. I'm running long this morning, and I should be because we need to go cook. That's what the guys are already doing. But please hang out. Come and put hot dogs together, get your hands dirty, grab some snacks and desserts, and let's enjoy time. And get to know some of the youth kids. And say hi. And meet at least one or two people that you don't know in this group. Let's pray together. I'm going to